Can you imagine a stepfather bragging to police about beating a child while he's being investigated for that child's death? On June 16th, 2019, police in Star City, Arkansas received a 911 call about an 11-year-old boy that wasn't breathing. The officer and EMTs tried to resuscitate Joseph Corsello. He was transferred to Jefferson Regional Medical Center, where he was pronounced deceased. Medical personnel and police both noted that Joseph's body was covered in bruises. Joseph had bruises on his face, arms, legs, and back. Police took Joseph's mother, Mary Black, and her husband, David Black, to the police department to speak to them. At the time of his death, Joseph Corsello was living in an RV with his mom, stepfather, older sister, and younger brother. When Joseph's mother, Mary, was questioned by police, Mary told police that they had been having disciplinary issues with Joseph. So according to Mary, on the day before Joseph's death, Joseph tried to run away. And so in response to that, both Mary and David spanked Joseph with a belt. According to Mary, Joseph said something that they took as being smart-mouthed, so they both hit Joseph in the mouth with their hands. According to the police affidavit, after getting whipped, Joseph pulled away from David and fell down the steps of the RV. He hit his head on a toolbox that was situated at the bottom of the steps. She felt like Joseph was fine. According to Mary, David had been in their lives for several years, but David was more regimented than they were really used to. David had a military history, and David did not like the way that Joseph behaved. David and Mary both drank quite a bit and used drugs. There's no way to really know everything that was reported, but I think that it's important to realize that these are 5 people living in an RV. Joseph was 11 years old. He had recently moved from Texas to Arkansas. He hadn't seen his actual father in a while. He was being disciplined by, his mom's husband. And sometimes that is, hard to take. Even if Joseph was behaving the way that Mary said, that is a lot for any person to take, much less an 11-year-old that can't really regulate their own emotions. So according to what Mary said, spanking didn't really work on Joseph, which I don't understand because you continued to spank him. That really doesn't add up to me. She said that they tried other methods of disciplining Joseph, which they called working him out. So they would make him do squats and push-ups. They would stand him in a corner for long periods of time. Mary said on the morning of Joseph's death, she didn't remember how Joseph was being disrespectful, just that Joseph was being disrespectful. So she told Joseph to go to his bed. He was going to get a spanking. And according to Mary, Joseph picked up a hammer. So they took the hammer away from Joseph. Mary says that they went a little crazy on him to teach him you can't get a weapon. David says that he whipped the shit out of him. Mary and David both say that they used their hands, they used a belt, a paddle, and possibly a wooden spoon to discipline Joseph for picking up the hammer. Then, at some point in the afternoon, the family goes swimming in a neighbor's pool. The neighbor himself is interviewed and says that he doesn't see any bruises on Joseph. But also, according to Mary and David, part of Joseph's punishment was watching everyone else swim. Mary did start to feel bad for Joseph at some point, so she did allow Joseph to come swim for a short amount of time. So when they got back home, Joseph went back to his punishment of standing in a corner, and they noticed that Joseph starts sitting down. They have to stand him back up. And then at some point, Joseph's speech starts being slow and slurred. Joseph kept falling asleep, and David poured water on his face to wake him up. I don't mean to be mean, but these people don't have 2 brain cells to rub together, because it wasn't until Joseph started choking on the water David was pouring on his face that they realized that something was wrong. They moved Joseph outside on the ground to do CPR, and Mary Black did call 911. I found it interesting that Mary told police that she didn't look at Joseph while all of this was going on until the EMTs put Joseph in the ambulance. because she was aggravated at him. This is totally just my opinion here, but Mary started saying a little bit more to police after her initial interview. And I think that it's almost to like save herself because she really understands the gravity of their actions. But a couple of things that Mary Black told police in another interview was that she witnessed David hit Joseph in the stomach, the head, and on his butt. Mary Black also told police that she didn't notice any bruises on Joseph, but after they went swimming, she went to the store for about an hour, and then when she came back is when Joseph started doing really not well, and they ended up calling police. Mary Black also told police that David was not abusive or mean to her, but he just had this way of convincing her that Joseph was a bad kid. 11-year-old Joseph Corsello's cause of death was ruled to be multiple blunt force trauma. Joseph had hemorrhaging in his abdominal cavity with a liver laceration and hemorrhaging to his pancreas and small bowel. He had bruises all over his body, including even his lips. Mary Black was arrested and charged with capital murder in the death of her son, Joseph Corsello. In 2021, she took a plea deal. She pled guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to 40 years in the Arkansas Department of Correction. Mary Black is set to go up for parole as of right now in 2047. David Black was also arrested and charged with capital murder. He took a plea deal. He pled guilty to capital murder and was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. David Black will spend the remainder of his life in the Arkansas Department of Corrections for the murder of Joseph Corsello.